How long was it? It was like, well, it was, I think it's 6 months.
Minimize so that we have the screen.
Yeah, we will have the biggest bonus. Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. And welcome. I'll call the special meeting of council January 23rd to order at 5:30 p.m. And note that Councillor Boone has sent regrets, and that Councillor Timpson will be joining virtually as per our, you can tell them the dates of our recent bylaw amendment to allow this to happen, as Councillor Costco did a meeting or two, So, and I'll do the best I can, Councillor Timpson, to monitor you and let you in when required. Any amendments to the agenda?
Through Mayor Lawrence, I have none.
Thank you. Motion that the agenda of the special council meeting, January 23rd, 2025 be approved as presented. Moved by Councillor Costco, seconded by Councillor Lego. I'm looking at you in two places here. That's good. And all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Declarations of pecuniary interest.
Through Mayor Lawrence, I have none.
Thank you. We have one item on the agenda. It's presentation of the draft municipal budget, and I'll turn it over to the CAO to start.
Perfect. Through Mayor Lawrence, thank you. Good evening, members of council, staff, members of the public in attendance or watching home or wherever you are deciding to tune in from remotely. On behalf of the treasurer and the senior management team, I'm very pleased to bring forward a budget this evening for council's consideration that will meet the needs of the corporation and the community in 2025 and position us for future growth and prosperity. I want to acknowledge with thanks the commitment and dedication of our team, who reviewed every expense category and revenue opportunity to achieve the budget that is being presented this evening. During this evening's presentation, you will note several achievements that have enabled staff to present a fair and balanced budget, including policing cost relief. The province, following significant advocacy from municipalities across Ontario, provided a one-time grant to offset the steep increase in OPP costs due to the implementation of the arbitration decision, which granted the Ontario public sector increases significantly higher than the cap, which had been imposed by the provincial government for several years. Instead of facing a $1.1 million increase in policing costs, we are seeing an increase of approximately $250,000 this year. This is still significant, and additional advocacy work is required to address Sioux extraordinarily high policing costs for future years. Significant savings in wages, resulting from a thorough review of all roles, responsibilities, and expectations, and with the implementation of position changes from frontline to senior management, we have achieved over $200,000 in savings in wages from 2024 to 2025. User fees. With the implementation of a new fees and charges bylaw, user fees across the corporation have been reviewed, reassessed, and updated to reflect service standards and council's desire to ensure the best mix of user fees and taxation revenues. The 2025 fees and charges are expected to yield an additional $50,000 in revenues for the municipality this year. Also, you will see that we have arranged the presentation such that it is very evident to council and to the ratepayers of Sioux Lookout what is driving the tax levy increase. You will, there you go. You will see that 2/3 of the levy increase is a direct result of provincially legislated agencies and services, including policing, health unit, district social services board, NPAC, and district homes for the aged. The final 1/3 of the levy increase is for municipally delivered programs and services. Sorry, this is cutting out. This part of the levy represents half of the 2024 Consumer Price Index, commonly referred to as inflation. Let me repeat that. We had managed to continue to offer the programs and services at the same levels or slightly better as we did in 2024, and did so at half the rate of inflation. We were also pleased to encourage public participation in the development of the 2025 budget through our budgetopoly exercise, during which members of the public were invited to help identify their priorities in various categories for our community. You will see in the budget packages the various ways which management integrated the public's priorities into our operations. Finally, to foster a meaningful meeting this evening and to ensure Council has time and ability to understand, reflect upon, and ask questions regarding the budget, comments and questions from the public will be welcomed via email following the meeting at budget@siouxlookout.ca. Feedback from these comments and questions will be provided at a future meeting. Now, to get into the details, I turn things over to Carly, our treasurer.
For you, Mayor Lawrence, staff tonight is presenting the 2025 budget draft for you and to discuss. So how tonight's presentation is going to work, we're going to go through all the changes and the whole entire presentation. And then at the end of the presentation, we'll be opening it up for questions for council to ask for anything that was presented tonight, and also any questions that they have in regards to the public, the package that they received. Is that me or you? So tonight's budget presentation, we're going to go through 5 sections. 1, the 2025 things to consider, known factors, things that we already know that have impacted the budget, a budget summary that will highlight certain areas that have made huge differences towards the budget, local agency requests, staff's recommendations, and then we'll open it up for questions from council. So things to consider. So items that to consider when looking through the presentation, and items that staff noticed as well was three huge areas in regards to revenue, rate increases and decreases due to property and service fees, the increases in the provincially legislated agencies and services, expenditures, so an increase in departments to assist with health and safety matters that have arisen from 2024, and also the savings from wages and benefits from organizational updates. So we're moving on to 2025 known factors. So assessment growth. So from 2024 to 2025, we had an assessment growth of just a tad above $5.5 million, which brought us an additional $164,000 in additional taxation levies in 2025. 1% then of the 2025 revenue brings us just a tad over 129,000. Moving on into provincially legislated agencies and services. So these include all the provincial agencies that the municipality has to pay to every year. All of them totaling to just a tad over $400,000. And that is an equivalent to a 3.13 taxation levy increase. These include items such as the Kenora Home for the Aged, the Northwestern Health Unit, the KDSB, MPAC, and also the OPP costs. So government funding agencies, these are amounts that have already been approved by the government and that are currently within our operating budget. So we have our OMPF. So this year we were quite happy. We were able to receive $129,000 in extra revenue. Last year, I believe it was around 2,000. So that was a nice little extra revenue that we received. The NOHFC internship has been 100% approved by NOHFC. So they are going to be paying for our intern up to $35,000. And then we have the OCIF, which is $60,000, which has been 100% confirmed, which is located within our operating budget. So in total, between these three areas, we have an additional, just a tad over $224,000 in increased revenue that's in our operating budget. So changes to revenue. So these items are not located within the operating budget. They're items that were included in the 2024 budget that cannot be included in the 2025 budget. So we transferred from reserves 60,000 in order to help offset the wages and benefits. We had added $80,000 from surplus to help lower the taxation levy. And due to tenant agreements and such, now that that has passed, we have $169,000 less in revenue for the train station now that part of that lease is now completed. So in total, within the operating budget, we have just a tad over $300,000 less in revenue. Now moving in to the 2025 budget summary. So one-time projects. All these projects are currently located within the operating budget and are part of the 1.31% of the request that's coming forward tonight. So we have the strategic planning that has already commenced, which is approximately $40,000 coming through taxation. That is already started with council and staff, and that's due to the fact that our last strategic plan is becoming obsolete. We have the union wage and pay equity evaluation of $40,000, which is coming through taxation as well. That has already been guaranteed to the union that this is going to happen this year. So those two things that are coming from taxation right now, the reason that they're coming from taxation is we currently have no reserves that can support these projects. So next we have the telephone system and website. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer that over to the CAO to do a little bit more explaining on that.
Thank you, Carla. So because this is going to be funded through the IT reserve, we have budgeted on the high end. Of course, those transfers won't actually happen until we know what the actual costs are. We have just in the last couple of weeks pivoted with respect to our website project, and we'll likely be going with a different service provider, which is going to see some significant cost savings. And with respect to the telephone and cell phone program, we're again switching service providers. Obviously, there's a cost during the switchover, but beginning in 2026, these changes will see approximately $45,000 to $50,000 of savings in telecommunication expenses annually starting in 2026. So that's sort of the rationale for those projects, as well with our new website provider. One of the things that's very challenging for all municipalities is when you sign up for services with various providers, the rates seem great in year one. And then, by year 3, by year 5, you see really significant increases. So this time around, we asked for something that we really didn't think we were going to get. But the new website provider has agreed to a maximum annual increase in fees of $60 per year. So that's really going to help control some of those costs going forward with respect to the website. So thank you, Carla, for that opportunity.
Next, we have the building assessments. So this pertains only to a couple of our buildings, and it comes in line with our asset management plan. So every 5 years, certain buildings will need to be reassessed due to the age and the maintenance that has been completed already on those buildings. So we do have about 5 or 6 buildings that need to have a revised assessment completed from it. It's going to be funded through OCIF, which is eligible for it because we also have to hire consultants to do it. It needs to line up with our asset management plan, meet certain criteria from the government, and we currently don't have the capacity in-house in order to complete those assessments. Next, we have the finance software that we're looking at 55,000 to be funded through taxation for this year. This is a 2-year full phase-in for the software. Our current software is becoming obsolete, and it will take the finance department approximately 2 years to implement from start to finish. And again, all these costs are currently located within the operating budget. So something new that the municipality started this year, and the intent is to keep doing it every year, is the budgetopoly. So what we did is every individual that wanted to come in was given $1,000, and they were given different areas where they wanted to spend their money on. This is the outcome of the results in priority. And so what the management team did was they took that information for what the results that came back from the public, and they tried to incorporate some of the public's requests within either the capital or their operating budget to show that, yes, we are listening to the public and to try and assist them with certain areas that we can. On to our 2025 budget operating. So what we decided to do this year was show you the positives and pressures in regards to how we came up with our current operating budget. So in regards to the revenue, we had increases from taxation due to growth. We have increases from government funding. And we do have some decreases from reserves and the surplus. And in regards to expenditures, we have an increase in regards to cemetery expansion. We're going to have to take on the operations of the cemetery that's in Hudson this year in 2025. So with that will come a lot of additional expenses in order to get that cemetery up to a certain standard now that it will be under the municipality's umbrella. The other increase is security. We've had a lot of issues in regards to certain areas within the municipality for security, and this has become a health and safety matter. So we're looking at bringing in security to help us manage and maintain the Memorial Arena, Farlinger Park, and Centennial Park. There is a increase within travel and training. This is increase due to new duties that are coming on with certain staff members, certain staff being hired that are brand new from changes within other departments. So with that comes additional training and items that are needed for those individuals. Increase within facilities. This is for supplies and contracted services to complete maintenance issues that are at our municipal buildings that need to be completed next year. We also have contracted services in regards to plowing and snow removal for Unferville Trail, for our parking lots, and also within Hudson. So these areas that you see here were the biggest kind of change within our operating budget that had done the most impact within it. So our 2025 reserve transfers, this is also within our operating budget. So in total, we're transferring approximately just a tad over 149,000 from reserves into our operating bank account in order to support certain needs that have already been decided on through council that are either in policy or that support one-time projects. We also are transferring we're transferring out $667,000 into reserves that line up with the policy from the reserve and the reserve fund that council approved this year as well. So the transfers out matches our bylaw 100% with what council has already agreed upon. Our capital budget for this year, we're looking at approximately $2.7 million in capital projects. Now, one of the things to be aware of is that these obviously in some areas are estimated costs, which have come from multiple agencies as well. So I understand that you're probably looking at it saying, wow, we have a lot where you are asking for a $1.2 million in long-term debt just from this year's projects alone. The one thing that I want to stress to council is that that's estimated. We are currently looking at funding opportunities with some of our large projects. And we're also looking at combining certain reserves and such with certain funding areas so that we can bring down that long-term debt of the 1.2. So what's going to happen is for large projects, another report is going to come to council that's going to specify exactly how everything will be funded with the funding agencies that we're currently looking at. So those numbers will still change, but another report will come to council once everything has been finalized and RFPs and stuff have gone out. In regards to council's contribution that they receive from the municipal accommodation tax. So in 2024, we received just a tad over $241,000. So currently, what's allocated is $133,000 of that has been allocated from the 241. So as of right now, council currently still has $107,000 remaining from the 2024 revenue that can be allocated for projects that come in line with the policy that council approved. All the transfers in and out, besides the capital items that you see there, are all found within our reserve and reserve fund policy as well. So in regards to the council donation request, that's something that council had requested. It's in the policy that every year, council can pull $10,000 from the MAT tax to be placed towards donation requests that can come out throughout the whole entire year. Same thing with the boat launch reserves, the community safety reserve, the transfer to the recreation and culture. Those items are all located within our bylaw and our policy and allows us to transfer those into those reserves. The arena and the fitness center, those come in line within the policy that council has put together to decide exactly what they want to use the MAT tax funding for. And those two projects fall in line with the policy. Next is organizational requests. So these are organizations within the municipality that have requested some sort of funding assistance from us. So the first one is the Sioux Public Library. This is already located within our operating budget. So their operating budget totals just a tad over $400,000. So the municipality funds, as of right now, 94% of their operating budget through taxation. And what the Sioux Public Library is requesting an increase of $15,000 in order to support their day-to-day operations. After we go through this next slide, I'm going to open the floor up to council for discussions just on this slide alone, and then we'll keep moving on. Then we'll open it up for any other questions or comments from council in regards to the rest of tonight's presentation. So tonight, the remaining local organizations is the MRI Foundation. So they've requested the 75,000 over 3 years. Council has already decided yes to that. So $25,000 this year, we're gonna place into the budget. We hadn't decided yet where exactly we want those funds to come from. We also had the request from the Sioux Lookout Food Bank, and that was just a tad over $3,600 towards their new building. And then the Environment Committee came up and has requested to purchase 2 more additional Big Belly garbage cans. So the one thing that we really want council to be aware of is that these garbage cans come from the US. So we did receive a quote from the company. It came in at just a tad over $10,000. That included shipping at US funds. And don't forget, though, we need to pay customs with that. And as of right now, there is the potential of a tariff fee on top of that with what's currently going on with the government. That is, we don't know yet, but just to be aware of. So I'd like to open the floor up for conversations in regards to this slide to determine how council would like to possibly fund the MRI Foundation.
That's true, and I think we've committed, my understanding.
Just so we can see it.
I didn't-
Yeah, sorry. Sorry. Okay.
And will you, how do you monitor Councillor Simpson? If I can just. Oh, look at that, just focus in like that. Very good. So we have, just to confirm, last year, we committed $75,000 over 3 years, 25,000 per year is what we were thinking. So now it's, where are we taking that money from for that commitment? Council? Council.
I would like. I would like it to come from the mat tax. Can it come from the mat tax? Yeah, and I thought we had that discussion earlier.
Council Van Buren?
So like, I guess, so since we have $107,000 left in the mat tax, I thought just it's about the easiest way to go.
Councillor Cassidy?
Hey, yeah, that was my first thought as well.
Councillor Simpson? This is a test. Can't hear you, Councillor Simpson.
Just unmute.
If you agree with taking it from the mat tax, you can give me a thumbs up. Okay, Councillor Simpson, we have that question. When you just give me a wave when you're ready to, we'll try and monitor. Good, so we have a.
Sorry, my my phone was off. Sorry. Sorry, what was the question about the mat tax? I couldn't, what was the suggestion about the mat tax?
It's not, it's really about the MRI contribution, which we agreed to last year. $75,000 contribution to the MRI. through the hospital foundation, and we agreed to $25,000 per year in 25, 26, and 27. So now we're deciding where are we going to take that money from, where we're going to source that money in our budget. And at the council table, everybody has said, because we have $107,000 available in the MAT tax, everybody here has said, take it from the MAT tax.
I have no problems with that, but I read in the newspaper the other day that there's 49 communities are getting an MRI, and maybe we should just put that on hold until we know for sure whether we're one of them.
I think we are one of them. That's
Mhm.
coming. At a delegation meeting in Toronto, it was more or less, I believe it's coming. We were there 2 days ago, and the indication was it's coming. And this is, but it doesn't mean to say it's going to be fully funded. It means the province will probably fund the building, and the foundation, the hospital will probably have to fund the equipment. So it's 5 million for the building, 2 million. The money is still needed either way. Okay, so I think we have a straw
Yeah.
poll that says the MAT tax, so we'll move on. You've got your answer? You have any other?
So next is the Sioux Food Bank. Does council want to support their request? And if so, where would you like the funds to come from?
Councillor Van Breda.
Can we use all three requests under the MAT tax?
If that's the direction from,
Let's do one at a time, Councillor Van Breda. So
MAT tax, yeah.
for Councillor Costco?
Now, is this not,
Yeah, Microsoft. The other one, yeah,
is this not to do with the land purchase? There's some
Syria.
detail with this.
Yes, through you, Mayor Warren. So the original request came from the Sioux Food Bank. And it was a result of their purchase of the 2 lots in the Boreal Trail subdivision. And as council may recall, for every lot that's sold, the municipality gets a small portion of that sale price. So because they purchased 2 lots, the municipality's portion of that was the 3,684.88, which is why it's such an odd number. And so the initial request was, would the municipality consider refunding its share of that revenue? And it's staff's recommendation that it's a slippery slope if we start taking from land sale reserves and not putting it where it belongs in the land sale reserve fund. So council said last year the direction was we still want to consider this and entertain it, but let's look at it as part of the 2025 budget. And so that's where we are today.
And I agree with the staff. I believe this is a slippery slope, and I do not agree with us refunding the our portion of the land sale for this. I don't want to set a precedent, and I'm not in favor of it.
Okay, Councillor Nagel.
Yeah, I agree with Council Costco on this. It is a slippery slope. We do it for one, then we're gonna have other people coming to us saying, well, you did it for them, you need to do it for us. So I'm a no on that one.
Any comments, Council? Councillor Kesson.
Yeah, I would agree with the no on that as well.
One thing I'll say is that the part of the reason it's come here and not is it's the same number as the land sale, but we're not giving them the land sale revenue. What we're doing is they've made a donation request in the way that we advertise for donation requests. Am I correct? So they're requesting a donation. They're no longer requesting the land sales. And I think staff have come up with a donation that is an equivalent value to the land sale, but it's not, we're playing our cards in a sleight of hand, let's say. So I had 3, Councillor Timpson, any comments? Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, food security, that's a pretty darn basic thing. And this is really it's not a donation. It's just money that we wouldn't have had if it wouldn't have had it anyways, because these lots aren't going like hotcakes. So I'm okay with donated that land. That's basically what we're doing. You were donating that land, which we weren't
No,
gonna
let's-
sell
let's-
anyways.
Let's not say that we're not donating the land. There's been a request for a donation for $3,900 or whatever. That's what this is about. And we're going to, this suggestion,
Well,
but we'll fund it from the MAT tax. So we're using our MAT tax to provide a donation to the food bank is what we're doing. We have not entered the
okay.
slippery slope of.
Oh,
of
okay,
not-
okay. All right, okay.
Councilor Van Breda, I'm sorry, did you comment already?
Yeah, I said I'm in favor of using the mat tax for it, the same.
So I'm in favor as well, and that's 3-3. So it's, I guess if it's a positive, it's a defeated motion then because it's a tie. So that I guess is being removed from the budget.
It's currently not in.
Budget, so which is that's the way it is. But again, I stress this was a donation request, not a refund or no value on sale of land.
Next is the request from the Environment Committee in order to purchase 2 additional Big Belly garbage cans.
My first comment, sorry, if I may, Council, is can we source these in Canada or some alternate product?
So there are other companies within Canada that sell garbage cans. I'm not 100% sure whether or not they look exactly like the Big Belly garbage cans, but there are Canadian companies out there that do sell garbage cans.
So this is a little bit of an aside, but I might as well, at the Roma conference with 1,500 people in the hall and all the 20 provincial cabinet ministers in the bear pit session, one councillor from East, West, South Trouble-Mary or whatever it was, said, how can we help fight the tariffs if they come through procurement? Can we? And they wanted some easing of procurement rules. But would this go against our procurement rules if we just said source something in Canada? Something, it will do the best you can do. CIA.
So you may know, so because this particular product is proprietary in terms of what it offers and so on and so forth, there isn't an exact replica of it in Canada. However, if council wishes to increase the number of garbage cans that we have at our disposal, forgive the unintended pun, yes, we can purchase, can I say, regular garbage cans in Canada, but not this specific product.
So but we could search something that was similar, that had some of the same kind of similar qualities as this one. Wouldn't be identical, but try to achieve what we're achieving. And if we can't achieve, I think the desire here is Big Belly that's not prone to vandalism, etc. It's and if we can't, then I'm going to lobby for, let's ask staff to try and source something in Canada and give them, in my view, if that's 10,000 US for, that was each or, sorry, total. Give a budget of 12,500, $15,000 Canadian. And put that in the budget and if you can't achieve it, come back to us and let us know. Or if you're worried that it's not the equivalent, that's okay. I'll put that on the floor as an alternative.
With that. Would the final say of the garbage can go to the environmental committee?
No,
Would it
the
go to
environment
us?
committee does not do procurement. We do. The
Okay,
municipal staff do.
so they would, no, but they would present it to council, or would they present it to the
council.
environmental
To
committee?
council.
Council. Okay.
Councilor Van Buren.
I'm good. And can we do 15,000?
I think that's what I ended up saying. I'm not sure what that might actually represent the Canadian exchange rate. I'm not sure. Councilor Costa, you might know. Is it about $1?
50%.
Council comments either way. I mean, stick with the original or.
Yeah, initially looking at that, I would, whether it's wherever it's sourced, I think just some other options would be good to explore, so.
So, Councilor Simpson, comments?
I'm in favor of that, the proposal, but I think we have to consider that here we're putting $15,000 in the garbage cans and we're not willing to put $3,000 into the food bank. Let's just be clear on that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that one's not on the table anymore. That's off. So we are talking about the garbage cans now. So I think there's a consensus from council staff. Is that clear, the $15,000 Canadian?
It's, through you, Mayor Lawrence, yes. So
Canadian
now
program?
we just need to know how council would like to fund that, if that's through Matt as well, or.
Matt tax, Council Cassidy, Council Simpson, Matt tax.
Yes, yes.
Good.
Thank you.
I just have one question.
Go ahead, Council Cohen, related to this item,
No, related to the whole,
the whole budget picture or?
no, the whole donation picture.
Okay.
Now, we still have, there is $10,000 in the budget for throughout the year for any organization to come back and ask for. Is that not correct? That's already funded?
Yeah.
So,
Yes, that's correct.
so if the food bank, for example, was doing a fundraiser, they would have the opportunity to come back at that time to access the $10,000. Is that not correct?
Female loans, yes, that's correct. And to further clarify, the two items, the 25,000 for the MRI campaign, the 2025 contribution, and the 15,000 Canadian for additional waste receptacles would come from the $107,000 available MAT funds and not from the 10,000 that's dedicated just for community needs.
So that leaves $67,000 available in the MAT funds, which will come into play over the course of finalizing the budget. Okay.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, you can always keep the funds there as well. So as projects come into light or get presented in 2025, there's the option to use those funds there for any sort of new projects that may come in after the budget's been approved as well.
We can accumulate MAT tax year to year to year.
You don't have to spend all the funds within the next year,
How many years can you accumulate?
as long as
Is that okay?
council chooses to.
Thanks. Councilor Cass.
So with the 10,000 that we have allocated, could I make a request that maybe at the end of the first quarter, if we have no other budget request for that 10,000, could we reconsider the food bank donation request at that time? To come out of that pot, not the 107. That way it's coming from the way okay. Sorry, is that what you're saying?
But what I'm saying is with the $10,000 that's allocated there, the food bank does do
Yeah.
multiple fundraisers for the year. For example, we could allocate $3,500 to keep the mayor in jail for their big fundraiser. We could allocate a request. Yeah. Well, they do have some creativity there that they could come back to us and ask for the $10,000. I just wanted to make that clear to them, that just because we're saying no to this on principle, we're not saying no, that we're not good committee men. They just need to return to the table and ask
I
it.
would rather, yeah,
10,000.
I would rather have it like if that's our allocated pot for donations for any specific things versus a MAT where it's a broader community aspect. I do understand the food bank services a community, but not every single member of there uses it. So I would rather have that be a little more specific from our pot if that's what we're gonna do down the road. If there's no other competing requests.
Councilor Cassidy.
Actually, never mind.
All right.
Yeah.
Also, didn't have to do with rumors, but because that's how rumors start, you know?
Yeah.
Female Lawrence, so just to further the treasurer's comment, in this case, given that we're at, 67,000 or so unallocated at this point in time, I would recommend to council that we leave that unallocated for things that Carly has talked about, new projects that may come up where that those funds could be used as seed money or to help offset some of the costs. So that would be the recommendation. Invariably, opportunities do come up every year that we can't possibly foresee at this early stage. So having a little bit of room there to be able to essentially to be able to bring a report to council to recommend an initiative of A, B, or C, And then instead of having to say, and this will be funded through long-term debt, we can give an option and say, this could be funded through the municipal accommodation tax revenues. And also bearing in mind that council has also sort of given the indication that their preference is for the allocation of municipal accommodation tax funding for the municipal share, is that it goes towards initiatives that, are tangible, that the community can see and feel and appreciate. So we keep that in mind as well.
My only concern with that is $67,000 is a half a point in taxes. So to raise people's taxes to save money to do a project that isn't on the table, when we have projects on the table that we could allocate this money to. Because do we not also have some surplus money kicking around that we have not allocated?
Yes, so through your Lawrence, both the surplus and the municipal accommodation tax revenues, when we developed the reserve fund policy, council agreed that we weren't going to use those funds to artificially lower what we need in taxation. So applying the surplus or applying the 67,000 to the general operations is sort of against council's policy now.
But we could allocate it to a capital project, could we not? Is that against the policy?
No, through Mayor Lawrence. So yes, if there are capital projects that are being funded through taxation, then that would be another area where it is. But my point it essentially was just that we don't have to allocate it, that we do have the ability, as we have done in previous years, because the first few years we allowed it to accumulate to the point where we could pay off the 600-ish thousand towards the big waterfront project. So those options and opportunities are certainly there. Absolutely.
The value of a little bit of wiggle room in the budget can't be overstated. I think as the years have gone by, budgets have got tighter and tighter and tighter, and the ability to address things that come up on the fly, so to speak, is being reduced. So I don't think it's a bad thing to keep this unallocated going in. We'll see what comes. Back to you, Treasurer.
Thank you. Moving along to staff's recommendations. So staff's recommendation is as follows: that council approves the 2025 operating levy of just a tad over $37 million for a 1.31% tax levy increase, which also equals to $170,511. That council approves the 2025 provincially legislated agencies and services levy of $3.8 million, needing a 3.13%, equaling $403,962. And that council approves the 2025 capital expenditure budget with associated fundings. So staff is requesting in total for a 4.44 tax levy increase. Now, what does this look like? And where does those funds go? So if your property is assessed at $100,000, you're looking at $65 of it automatically going to pay for provincially legislated agencies and $27 coming towards the municipality. Now, if your property is, let's say, $300,000, then you're looking at $195 that goes straight towards provincially legislated agencies. $81 comes to us, totaling $276. And that is tonight's presentation on the 2025 budget. Now opening the floor up to any questions or comments from council in regards to tonight's presentation and package.
Councilor Cassidy.
Yeah, just a question in the package about the walking bridge improvements. The OCIF funding, has that been guaranteed, or we approved that or received it? Like that's
a guarantee.
Yeah. Okay.
And we do have a little bit of wiggle room if that project were to go over with OCIF as well.
Council. Council Coughlin.
Have a general observation. Last year I was very loud about contracted services, supplies and wages. And I'm really pleased to see that you brought them down substantially. Contracted services, for example, have come down $200,000 in the planning board. So what is that $200,000 reduction in the planning board? I have several other questions too. You want to talk about that?
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, $200,000 pertains to the possible purchase of land that we were gonna do at the end of Prince Street.
That's
Yeah.
reduction. Okay. I also noticed that you reduced utilities. How did you manage to reduce some of the utilities?
So some of the buildings that facilities have been currently working in have been bringing in contractors to improve the HVAC system and the heating system within those buildings. So now that some of the buildings have received that, we've been able to reduce.
Very pleased that you've taken a look at these things, which I asked for last year, and that you've taken them seriously and you've done substantial reductions. I just wanted the public to know that you've worked hard at that, and I'm very grateful.
Thank you.
And I had one more question. I noticed the roads, and I didn't notice a rural road. Is there a rural road being done?
In regards to capital or operating,
Like anywhere, like I noticed that you talk about which roads are being resurfaced in this, and I didn't notice that there is a rural road being done, and I really think it's really important that we do one of those roads per year, because they're in very poor condition.
So through Mayor Lawrence, this year, what's happening, there's a number of preparation works that have to happen before we can resurface the road. So in some cases, that involves additional ditching, culvert replacement, grinding of the surface treatment that's already there. So that's the focus this year, is to get the next 3 to 4 to 5 rural roads that will be slated for resurfacing, is to get them ready for resurfacing. Because the last thing, of course, we want to do is to put a new coat on, and then the next year we have to replace a culvert and we dig out the road. So this year the focus is prep, and then we will see additional rural roads, see some of that resurfacing next year and in future years.
Councilman Brady.
Just a general comment as well. I remember last time I was here, I talked about inflation. So in January 2024, inflation was at 2.9%. The bank rate was at 5.25%. As of right now, inflation is now at 1.8%, and the bank rate is now at 3.25%. And it would probably come down starting on February 1st, if and when the tariffs do come into effect. And another observation is that when I was at the Roma conference, I was talking with a couple of counselors, one from Chatham, Kent, and another one was from the town right beside St. Thomas. I forget the name. It's probably east, west, north, south, something like that. So we were talking about how much taxes go up and how much that's actually going to the operating budget. So I made a little joke that the ghost of Mike Harris still haunts us to this day. So this is still the common sense revolution here. Ontario is the only province where social services, public health, long-term care, affordable housing, and emergency services are not a provincial responsibility. We're also the only province in all of Canada where MPAC, or the health assessments, have not restarted since COVID. So again,
Councilman Brady, is this a specific comment about our budget, or are you talking?
it's just a comment about budgeting.
I think we can leave the provincial.
You should know that, your budget really is only going.
Keep the comments to our budget here. Yeah, Councilor Ling.
Yeah, I just want the public to realize, even last year when we were debating the budget, we were looking at a 4.5 increase, and there's a lot of upset people about the 4.5, but I don't think, and it was probably the first real year that we've put in the spotlight what we need to pay the provincially legislated services and agencies. Of the 4.5% last year, 2.9 was paid out to these agencies. And the municipality to cover operating and capital expenses was 1.6%. And again, this year it's 1.3%, well within my 2%. So it's these outside, it's these outside agencies,
Let's, you're 2%.
by 2%. I'm just saying that it's these agencies that where we are basically the collectors of money from the taxpayers to pay these increases. And I just want the public to be aware of that. Sometimes they don't see where the money's going. They just see the 4.5% and they think it's all going to the municipal budget, but it's not. So I appreciate that staff put that in the spotlight for people to see that this year is going to be 3.13% that we need to pay to the provincially legislated agencies and services. And they're asking for 1.31% to cover operating and capital expenses. So I just wanted to make that clear for everybody.
Thanks, Councilman Nagel. I'll just speak to the outside agencies. I sit on the boards of three of them, I suppose, the Food Services Board, which we don't really control the budget, the Colorado District Services Board and the Public Health Unit. They're under similar pressures and even sometimes more so than because of direct downloading. The health unit, it looks like a bigger increase this year than it was. That increase actually happened last year, but they had some reserve money and they sent checks out to all of the 19 municipalities and said, you could either use this or you could put this in your bank account and use it for your budget or whatever. Most of that increase actually happened last year. The health unit has been limited by the province to 1% increases for many, many years in its funding allocation from the province for core programs. So it is constantly going, with inflation back at 5% and 4%, it was really reducing, the province was reducing. So the health unit charges to us are, I think, fair. KDSB, police, I mean, we all know about the policing costs. Those are province-wide, the huge increases, as well as we know what an outlier we are in going up. So that's not unique to us. District Services Board doing more and more work all the time. They said the cost. So, but I think the points you make are good. And personally, I think I like the process this year that we did start in the fall, looking at some things. And I think the presentation that we received for last Friday for the budget was excellent, going through the document. And then tonight's presentation is good too. I do have going back to the budget, and this, I think it was at the last regular council meeting, we received the flooding mitigation and mapping study. And in it, there were various recommendations. Council, nobody gets reelected for looking at the next emergency or mitigating the next emergency. But when the emergency comes and you're not prepared, like various locations around the world we see right now that might perhaps be under scrutiny for that. So we've got the study and we have some relatively simple things that we could start off doing. And I do want to point out, in the study, it talked about the flood we had in 2022 was a 50-year flood. 1941 is now considered a 100-year flood. 100 years from 1941 is 2041, which, believe it or not, is 16 years from now. So the odds are that in the next 16 years, we'll have a 100-year flood, which will be how much higher than the flood in 2022. So as a municipality, I think we need to do what we can, what we've now become aware of we can do. And some of the small things is the monitoring, setting up a monitoring plan, working with probably MNR and other agencies to get that going, just to start that so that we begin to know how to monitor and report. Yes, and maybe in a few years, we'll get that down to some, not a perfect science, but we'll be able to do as much prediction as we can using tools that are already available. And the other one was the sandbagging, the simple act of sandbagging. We learned from that flood about sandbagging, and there are some simple, relatively inexpensive things we could do, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 at some point. But I think the planning for that. So my question is, we've received the study as a council. Staff, where are we in terms of making sure there's no dust on that study and putting it into play? Because I didn't see anything in this year's budget, but maybe there's already a plan and it doesn't take any money from the budget. It's staff time that's
So through you, Mayor Lawrence, there was some funding that has come available in regards to sandbagging. We're currently looking at that and applying for the funding for the machine. I'm not entirely sure if council remembers, but a couple of years ago, we did apply for the same type of machine and we were declined. So we're looking for the same sort of funding avenue to do with that as well. We also have started communications and a meeting as a team in regards to how exactly we're going to monitor things and everything else. So we do have things that are part of our day-to-day operations that are currently located within the budget. And then anything outside that, when we do find funding as well, another report will come to council with those updates.
And through you, Mayor Lawrence, and further to those comments, which are all accurate. We and as you alluded to, Mayor Lawrence, the plan for 2025 is to plan to identify what we can do with the resources that we have available and potentially grant, but also to look at all the other recommendations to begin the process of developing systems related to the monitoring and reporting, identifying grant opportunities that may help with some of the other mitigation measures, pardon me, that had been identified in the flood mapping and mitigation study. So rest assured that no dust is being collected on that.
So even though there's nothing specific in the budget, we are moving. And I will say, council, this week, what the, this is Thursday. It was this week. We're at Roma. Yeah, earlier this week, Council Van Breda was there, I think on Monday. We met with the Minister of Transportation and his staff. And one of the three things we presented on was flooding mitigation. Their provincial bypass flooded. We presented them with a copy of our study. I highlighted on the specific plan where the bypass had flooded. And they assured me that they've already started the planning and engineering to fix that. I asked them to consider a few extra items or additional factors. And we also asked them to consider that during that flood, their traffic from the provincial highway system was forced to use what used to be the connecting link through our town, damaged our infrastructure because it was under pressure from below from the high water table, and asked them to consider putting that back on the connecting link program, which is, it's a big ask, but we're using that flooding mapping study to try and lever dollars and help the province actually in doing their work. So, but I'm glad to hear. Thanks for that. That was the only thing I wanted to add to the budget. It wasn't there already. Not subtract, but add. Councillor Timpson, comments.
I think it was on page 8 or 9. There's reference to.
Sorry, Councillor Timpson, of the that would be of the bound budget or the document tonight.
Yeah, you're looking for comments from council.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to get you to page 8 or 9 of this document here.
Of the document, of the document that was on
the PowerPoint.
It's on the website and it's explaining the various departments and the increases. I'm sorry, but I forgot to write it was after page 8 anyways. And there was the reference to legislative issues, lawsuits, etc., freedom of information, requests and so on, that and just basic requests from the public, that was increasing our costs. Can anybody comment on that? How are we going to have to increase our staffing in order to deal with legislative issues and similar issues?
Yeah.
To you, Mayor Lawrence. Thanks, Councillor Timpson. So we have been working hard internally to keep pace with those types of requests. At this point, we have elected not to include additional revenues in the budget for that purpose. We have elected to take a sort of not a wait and see approach, but we'd like to do some averaging over a longer period of time, just so that we have better numbers with respect to the amount of staff time that it does take to undertake, to fill those requests. Last year, there were a lot of those types of requests. We want to take a bit of a wait and see approach and see how things go this year. We will do our best to keep pace and keep up. But that is something that council may see in future budgets, depending on the frequency and the volume of those types of requests.
Okay.
Simpson?
Thank you. Yeah.
Good.
And the second question was on the capital, with reference to the airport, $600,000 for the extension of the parking lot would come out of long-term debt. Now, would that long-term debt be covered by the revenue from the airport or by the taxpayer?
To you, Mayor Lawrence, that is all covered through airport revenues.
Okay. Okay, that was all I needed to ask. Yeah.
Thank you. Council, anything further? Council Constant.
Now with the surpluses, because we do have the 22, 23, and now the 24 surplus. How is that going to play into our budget? And will we get a report on that of what's happening with that?
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, yes, a report comes to council with staff's recommendation in regards to the 3 areas that council has determined whether or not they want to, where they want those funds to go. The first portion being directly towards capital projects so that we don't have to take on long-term debt. The second portion was to possibly pay off some of the long-term debt. Now, we do have quite a bit of long-term debt actually from taxation that is, will be paid off either at the beginning of next year or halfway through next year. So that we're doing well there. The third part was then to look at our reserve and our reserve funds through the taxation portion and determine which ones need to have more funding because they're coming close to the minimal amount that we have to keep within those reserves. So that's what will be brought to council in the future. So the surplus has no bearing on the day-to-day operation budget that is being presented tonight.
Just in terms of debt, I was interested, just quick calculations in, if I added up all the debt in the budget, it comes to 15% of the roughly 13 million tax levy budget. But of that 15%, half of it is user fees, airport user fees being about 4%, and the utilities user fees being about 3.5%. So our actual debt percentage of the tax levy budget is 7.5%, which is about a quarter of what the provincial maximum is. And there will be a provincial minimum. If it goes too low, you will not get grants because they'll say you need to take on some of this debt. The debt that we share per capita, I'm not sure our total debt, if our total debt is 20, 30 million, just a rough calculation, we're about $4,000 or $5,000 per capita is our debt times 5,000, 6,000 people. Provincially, your share of the provincial debt is $30,000 per capita. You, your kids, everybody else. Nationally, it's $70,000 per capita. So each of us has $105,000 of debt to run the country, to run the province, to run the municipality. And of that 105,000 is only about 5,000 is municipal debt. So we don't ask for much, and it's well within the limitations. Those other levels of government have to use debt and use it differently than we do and have different responsibilities. We need to use that as well for long-term projects, and I think we do it well, as the treasurer just said. So it's great that some will be cleared off because it gives us room for more for investments in our municipality for the future. Anything further? Staff, where do we go from here? Sorry, council, anything further?
Do you want to talk to the public about the continued lobbying for policing costs? Because I know that like we said, the leasing costs only went up a small portion than what we anticipated. But it's still, our policing costs are not what we want. And just so the public knows.
I can
Yeah.
I can say a few words and I'll do a mayor's desk in the coming week or two, but we had a delegation at Roma this week with the Solicitor General's Senior Staff Deputy Minister and Chief Senior Policy Advisor, and some others in the room. And I also was in a delegation with KDSB with Solicitor General himself. We have a good relationship with the Solgen. Not their accounting department, but so to speak, but and those people had been here in this council chamber meeting with CAO and myself in September, and we gave them a lot of material which they told us influenced some of the things they've been doing. They're fully aware of where they sit, both provincially and with the outliers such as Sioux Lookout, Kenora, Ignace, Pickle Lake, Dryden, etc. And they committed to us, and Councillor Van Breda was there, to say that they are looking at the core model of how the policing is charged to OPP policing is charged to the 300 municipalities that are serviced by the OPP. And on top of that, along with it, and at the top of the pile is how the outliers, the really extreme cost communities can be helped. And they committed to come here again sometime in the coming months. And they're doing that this year. We asked them, what about this year? And this is what we've been told. It's not just us. I mean, believe it or not, there's municipalities that are screaming because their cost per property for policing has gone up now to $350 per property, which is about 1/4 of what ours cost would be undiscounted. And they're screaming because it went from 300 to 350. That's where we'd like to get to. I'd be ecstatic if we did that. But that's so what the province is facing is a whole hundreds of municipalities saying policing is too much, even though we think what they're paying is just wonderful. But that's where it is. And we're continuing that dialogue and with the Solgen, and they'll be here in a couple of months. And I spoke to the CIO when I came back from Roma yesterday, but we agreed that we'll certainly send a thank you letter for our meeting, but in about a month or 6 weeks. And the CIO has very good contacts with senior staff, actually, the two that were there, we met with, so he'll be following up as well. So that's where we're at, and we're not alone this time, where we don't have to lead the charge. There's a couple of hundred municipalities in the fight now. Okay. Anything further? I wanted before we again, I want to reiterate and I think what Councillor Lego, what all the councillors said, support that and last year's budget, this year's budget, but staff, I'm looking at staff, great job. Thank you very much. I know this isn't just CAO and treasurer. All you department heads had to work hard to deliver this budget. Thank you very much. Personally, I think it's a very fair budget. And it's a good budget to move the municipality ahead. So thank you very much. And we will look, I suppose, at the next meeting for a ratification. Is that what is the process from here?
Sure. So, Mayor wants if we can just go back. Oops. I can start playing and things are gonna get messed up. There we go. So these were sort of if the council is prepared to move forward with the budget and wishes staff to come back with the bylaws to make it all come into a force and effect based on what has been presented. Council, we would invite council to consider passing the motions that are on the screen. And then that would result in the budget documents and bylaws and all that kind of stuff coming forward at the next meeting.
Then that would be the passage of the budget would be, this is leading up to that. So is this are we voting on this recommendation tonight, or how do we do this? I'm sorry.
So, yeah, I mean, I think it gives, if council supports this recommendation, it gives staff the clearest direction possible as to the next step. But if not, then additional discussion would need to happen with respect to what else council would like to see.
So we're looking for public input, so perhaps we can still have that public input after.
Absolutely, because passing these recommendations tonight is essentially giving direction to staff to move forward with bringing a final budget package. However, as I noted in my opening remarks, we do invite comments and questions and so on from the public. And if anything arises between then and when we bring the budget for ratification, we will absolutely bring that forward. And
Like a statute, a planning meeting where you would bring comments.
yes.
Fair enough, Councilor? Councilor Costco?
I don't want to vote on it prior to having public consultation. I think consultation, once we've all agreed that we're going to do this, is not valuable. So I think.
So we can accept the recommendation, and also that we are pending, staff reporting on public comments that we may consider and see if we want to make any adjustments. Is that fair enough?
And through the mayor words, that is sufficient for direction for tonight.
Okay.
That is very clear. That's great. Thank you.
Treasurer?
I think,
Councilor Timpson, go ahead.
yeah, I mean, I agree with Councillor Costco. I mean, in the sense, it's as long as what we decide tonight is clear to the public that this is not the final yet. No, we're waiting for their input.
I think that's what we're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Treasurer, final comments? CAO?
To you, Mayor Owens, no, just again, very quickly, my sincere thanks to council for your attention and attentiveness, and I know that we prepare all of this, but you are the ones who have to wade through it all and understand it and come to grips with what it means for your organization and for our community. So my thanks to you for putting the time in and taking the effort to do that. Staff is always appreciative of council's input and feedback, and it's very much a two-way street. Where we advance the municipality's objectives collaboratively and collectively. So thank you for that. Again, my sincere thanks to Carly and all of the management team for your hard work, not just on the budget, but always, and for your support. Just thank you again for a productive meeting this evening.
And that's the last word. That bylaw number 9-24 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the municipality of Sioux, January 23rd, 2025 special council meeting be read a first, second, and third time and passed. Moved by Councilor Van Breda, thank you, and seconded by Councilor Timpson. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Better. About did better.
Oh, yes, yes.
Oh, no compatibility this year?
No.
Please don't.
After I went through 20, 21, 22, 23 budget and then looked at last year and went,